is Nikon about to release not just one, but two Nikon Z8 cameras, one aimed at photographers with the other one aimed at videographers. Well, based on the latest leaked photo, some say yes, but does this make any sense? Well, stay tuned after this short break to find out. But first, please do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter, but most importantly, subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent, it means an awful lot to me, but most importantly, it really helps this channel grow. Yesterday was a big day for Nikon customers. We got a leaked photo of the Nikon Z8, a front profile, and we got a set of detailed leaked specifications on the camera. And if you haven't watched either of these two videos, I recommend watching the detailed specs video as it includes the photo and the specs all in one video. But for the lazy viewer, here's the full frontal shot from yesterday, showing all the buttons, but it also gives us a glimpse of the dials and buttons on top. And by looking at the Nikon Z9, we can definitely see the similarity. But will the Nikon Z8 also get an LCD? I think so. I mean, it makes an awful lot of sense. The closest competitor, based on what we know of the Nikon Z8 from yesterday's leaked specifications, is clearly the Canon EOS R5. And in many ways, the Nikon Z8 is better, as it should be. After all, the R5 came out some 3 years ago. And that R5 on top has an LCD, so I think it's highly plausible. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Nikon Z8 to also have an LCD. But sadly, we don't have a view of the top. That's probably going to come out in another leak, probably tonight, tomorrow, or someday thereafter. But we do have a leaked image of the back of the camera. But a word of caution here. This is a little bit frustrating because that image is cropped and low resolution. I guess the leaker's working with one of those old Sony Mavica CD1000 cameras. You know the one. It has less than 1 megapixel and a CD for storage. Anyhow, as you can see, everything from the buttons to the EVF from this view is identical to the Nikon Z9. So why is it cropped? What is the leaker hiding from us? Is there some sort of revelation outside of this that is indicating that there is two different cameras? Unfortunately, we're just going to have to wait for the uncropped image to drop to be able to determine what is missing in terms of buttons, dials, or labeling. But let's get back to the EVF, because both EVFs look identical, from the Nikon Z9 to the Nikon Z8, and many has been postulating, talking about, conjecturing, does this mean that the EVF will have a resolution of 3.69 million dots, just like the Nikon Z9? No, it certainly doesn't. Just because it has the same look and feel, just because it has the same plastic housing or the same dimensions, doesn't mean it has the exact same resolution. The Nikon Z9 has 3.69 million dots, and it's certainly plausible that this camera will also get 3.69 million dots. But the Canon EOS R5, again its closest competition, has somewhere around 5.7 million dots. And the Sony, the A7R5 or the Alpha 1, well, they come in at 9.44 million dots. And if we take a look at Nikon Rumors, which has been doing a great job of covering this story, and all the leaked specifications going back several months, well, initially they were saying 9.44 million dots. And then they changed it to 9 million dots, and just recently they said, we're getting an awful lot of conflicting information. Is it going to be 3 million dots or 9 million dots? We just don't know at this point. And because of this and some other observations we pointed out earlier in this video, it's got people postulating, conjecturing, coming up with an idea that, well, wait a minute, I think Nikon's coming out with two cameras, one aimed at photographers and one aimed at videographers. But does this make any sense? Is it plausible? And the short answer is, well, yeah, it is. Let's take a look at the closest competitor to the Nikon Z8 based on the leaked specifications we got yesterday. And that's the Canon EOS R5. Now, this camera was released back in July of 2020. The end of July, I bought the camera. I've been using it ever since. But it took about a year or two, well, I think it was more closer to 2 years, and we got a video-centric camera called the Canon EOS R5C. And more than video-centric, it's actually a cinema camera, and that's what the C stands for. So Canon, the closest competitor, came out with a video-centric version, although it took them several years. But if we take a look at Panasonic, they released the S1 and the S1R, one being more of a hybrid and the other one being, well, a photography-centered camera. And then a few months later, they released the S1H. And this camera was dedicated, well, it was focused on video, although it still had some stills capabilities. And Panasonic and Canon aren't the only ones doing this. Fujifilm has also done this. They've issued or released a stills hybrid camera that's aimed at photographers and one aimed at videographers. So this is certainly plausible. Now, maybe Nikon's doing things right, and they're coming out with a video-centric version and a stills hybrid version. both at the same time instead of doing what Canon did and waiting a couple of years. And there's something else I want to draw out too. When I looked at the specifications yesterday, I had some thoughts afterwards, and one of the things that caught my attention, Nikon rumors said that we're getting this camera that's capable of doing 8.3K at up to 60 frames per second. But the sensor resolution, 45.7 megapixels. And what that tells me is if it's going to be DCI 8K, it's not going to be able to do 4.3, because to be able to do 8K DCI, you need a resolution on a stills hybrid camera of right around 45 megapixels. I think it's around 44.7, but it could definitely do an 8.3K video resolution UHD versus DCI. So I'm wondering, as I thought about this, there's a few, I would say, almost subtle hints, kind of pointing us in this direction that we might be getting two cameras. And regardless of any sort of specifications that we're getting or some conflicting information that Nikon rumors is getting, if we just look at the competition, the landscape currently out there, it certainly makes sense that they would release two separate cameras. They haven't done it at the flagship level. Sony hasn't done it, Canon hasn't done it, but certainly at a more professional level, from $2,000 upwards to around $4,000 or $5,000, we are seeing more cameras being made aimed at photographers and videographers, two separate cameras. I don't think we're going to see three separate cameras like Panasonic tried with the S1 and the S1R, and then of course the S1H. But what do you think? Do you think we're getting two separate cameras? One aimed at videographers like myself and one aimed at photographers? One called the Nikon Z8 and the other called the Nikon Z8 VX, or insert any other Roman letter. I'm just not sure at this point. It's certainly plausible, but the one thing to keep in mind, I know you're getting excited like me, we don't have anything that's been validated. We don't even have anything from Nikon rumors saying that we're getting two separate cameras. There's nothing. However, I'm really curious that we're getting these cropped images of the Nikon Z8. It's like, why are you hiding certain buttons from us? Is there certain giveaways? Because when you're doing video, when you're doing a website and you're trying to get views and you're trying to get interest, if you can take that information and you can sort of trickle it out over the days and weeks leading up to an announcement, well, what are you doing? You're chumming the waters, you're getting more views. And me personally, I'd rather release all the stills right away so we can see the front of the camera, the back of the camera, the sides. But I'm not controlling the information. Nobody's providing me leaked information, so I'm just reporting what we're getting. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest news and rumors regarding the Nikon Z8, the latest specifications, photos, or other information such as whether we're getting two cameras or not, then go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications. Not only does it help you to stay up to date on the latest news and rumors, but it really does help this channel grow. For every subscriber that I get, I'm able to put that number up there, and through the YouTube formula, the YouTube algorithm, it just gets my videos shown through others, and that just steamrolls into getting more views. And if you want to stay up to date on all the minor news and rumors, all those stories that aren't quite big enough to have their own separate video, such as the Nikon Z6 Mark II being on sale for $300 off, well then follow me on Twitter at this address here, because all those stories that aren't quite big enough to have their own separate video, I tweet those out on a daily basis, and sometimes there can be as many as 7 to 10 videos. So all the minor news and rumors and deals that are coming out, like daily deals from Adorama and B&H. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, one other thing, you'll notice that down below I have pre-order links for the Nikon Z8, but those are smart links. You're not going to be, if you click on those links now, you're not going to see the Nikon Z8 and you'll be able to pre-order that. Why I've started putting that in these videos is because right around the announcement, when Nikon says, here's our Nikon Z8, and you can pre-order it, people are still watching these videos, so I like to have links in here that once the announcement is there, once these cameras are available for pre-order on B&H and Adorama, these links will work. So if you want to take these links and bookmark them, and then as soon as we have the announcement day, you can keep refreshing these pages. And all it does is save you a few seconds, so that way you can be earlier in the queue and get your camera within the first couple of weeks versus the first couple of months. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.